Hello, everybody. How y'all doing? I'm doing good. Welcome to my channel, From Darkness to Light, Radio Recovery Life Coaching, and also my podcast. I'm your host. Y'all know who I am by now. Thank you guys for joining me for this episode. If you guys like the commentary and you want to hear more, please go to Spreaker.com forward slash self discovery. From Darkness to Light Radio Podcast. If you're on YouTube, you can basically hit the like, subscribe, and notification button to receive notifications of my videos. And if you guys are wanting to hear all of my podcasts, you can go to my name and you'll be able to see all of my podcasts. My podcast is on Spotify, Google, iHeartRadio. It's also on Amazon, Google, and other streaming platforms as well. A little bit about me: I am a certified recovery and healing life coach, as well as a mental health practitioner and well-being practitioner. So that's a little bit about me. If you guys want to send me letters as far as things you're going through, if I have touched your spirit or I've helped you through a very bad traumatic experience, then by all means you can send me letters and you can send me emails at asha.mariama01@gmail.com. That's asha.mariama01@gmail.com. Now I am so excited because I just got my mental health and well-being practitioner certification, and I am so proud of myself. So I wanted to come on here today because I wanted to talk about, why do people lower their standards and their self-respect for people that are not worth them? This is one of the things that a lot of people have the hardest time recovering from, and even accepting the fact that it's an addiction. And this one comes from validation and it comes from codependency. When it comes to validation, this starts from childhood, when you were a kid and when you wanted your parents to appreciate you, to love you, to care about you, to like you, to appreciate you, to value you, to basically going from that to your friends, and you want them to need you, you want them to accept you, you want them to know your worth, you want to be validated, you want to be approved of, you want to be a part of something, and you want somebody to know your worth. And you go from you having your own values and your principles, your ethics and your morals and critical thinking, common sense and common judgment, to now you are basically essentially living someone else's life that is not yours. When it comes to validation, I want people to understand that not everybody needs validation, not everybody wants validation. But validation is absolutely a very big addiction that a lot of people have. Now, I'm going to look up the word validation and codependency. So give me a second. Validation. It says the action of checking or proving the validate or accuracy of something. Now, that's the part of it when it comes to just when you're validating like a project that you're doing, or you're validating something that has nothing to do with emotions. Well, when it comes to a person trying to be validated, when it comes to people, it means that you want people to know your worth. You want people to know your value. You want to be accepted by these people that you want to be accepted from. So to be validated is to prove or confirm that they are valued and worthwhile. So a lot of people really do want to be valued. They want to be accepted. They want to be loved. They want people to just see them. They want to be seen. They want somebody to care about them. They want somebody to love them. And when people want validation, it's a desire to have someone else's approval or agreement in what you're saying, believe, how you're treated, and the things you do for people. So, not saying that that's a bad thing that you want to be validated. It's not a bad thing. At least it shouldn't be. But when it comes to the validation of relationships, is answering in a way that shows that other people that you believe their experience or statement is valid, and you don't intend to change their view or correct them from being wrong. So for example, validation can go both ways. Validation can be somebody saying something negative about you, and instead of you trying to correct them, you just continue to let them believe whatever it is they want to believe, just so they can feel validated. Even though they're completely wrong and completely off base, you're not going to change their perspective because you're not trying to. So when it comes to how people validate you, they listen to, acknowledge, and rephrase what the person is saying. So, for example, a lot of y'all don't understand you're really not getting the validation that you think you're getting. So, I'll give you an example. If you got somebody talking to you about something and that person is on their phone and they're not paying you any attention, you're not being validated. If you're sitting there trying to have a conversation about your feelings and this person is acting like they don't care about your feelings, then you're not being validated. So the point of validation is to be seen and heard and not change or minimize their emotions. So in other words, the whole point of validation is to get some type of understanding. That's pretty much what it means. You want somebody to understand how you feel and acknowledge how you feel and respect the fact of your feelings. But the problem is people ain't doing that. A lot of people don't care about your feelings. They don't care that you know what I'm saying, are hurt. They don't care. So you're not being validated. You're not being validated if people got you doing something that's going to mess up your life. How are you being validated? How are you being validated when you're following behind other people and doing their dirty work? How you're not being validated. You're being used. So there's a difference between validation and being used. Now, is it narcissistic to want validation? Wanting attention, isolates, or validation is not inherently narcissistic. We all need to be heard and accepted, but narcissists crave attention constantly. So when you have a narcissist, like I said, there's different types of narcissists, I'm afraid. Everybody thinks being a narcissist is one way. Nope, there are multiple different narcissists, and even people you wouldn't think are narcissists. Now, is validation good in a relationship? Emotional validation is a critical component in a healthy relationship. It involves actively listening and making sure your partner feels understood. Is it toxic to seek validation? If you give too much weight to the opinions of others, we become trapped in never ending cycles of seeking validation. This can determine what our mental health is, and it leads to feeling low self-esteem and self-doubt. We can become too focused on pleasing other people and neglecting our own personal needs. So yeah, it can be toxic. Because if you're trying to date somebody who told you they didn't want to be in a relationship and you continue to pursue them anyway, then that would be toxic. If you're trying to bend over backwards for somebody that will never bend over backwards for you, then you're pretty much being toxic. If you're giving your body to a man that really is sleeping around with other women, then yes, it is completely and utterly toxic. It absolutely is. So validation doesn't have to be a bad thing, but it can be, depending on the obsession that come with it and the addiction that come with it. So the four types of validation would be perceptive validation or pre-market validation, retrospective validation, concurrent validation, and revalidation. Now, each one of these are different, but I'll go into them in a minute. Now, what's the difference between validation and enabling? Enabling occurs when validation transforms into unquestionable support for unhealthy behavior and attitudes. In this case, individuals might avoid addressing concerns or problems, fearing that providing honest feedback may damage the relationship. Now, there are a lot of people that are more so enablers than want validation. They think they want validation, but in all actuality, you're enabling. When it comes to enabling people, it just means that instead of you being honest, instead of you telling somebody how you feel, you're willing to put up with anything just to hold on to somebody that really doesn't need to be kept. So that's why a lot of people need to understand there is a difference. Now, when it comes to does my girlfriend need validation from other men? One of the primary reasons to seek validation from other men is the feeling of being neglected by their spouse. When a woman feels ignored or unaccepted in her marriage, she may turn to the internet to find attention and validation. Now, a lot of people do that because a lot of people in their real lives don't have friends, they don't have people to talk to, and the internet is their way of interacting with people. Some people, when they get on the internet is just a world because they have nothing outside the world. So if you don't have any context, let's say for example, you might have cancer and you might be in a cancer center and you don't really have too many friends. So the internet is your way of meeting people. It's your way of getting to know people. Now, when it comes to being neglected by your spouse, that's not the only reason that people go and they get on the internet and they're looking for attention. Some females don't even want to be with the person they're with, but because they have money, they are going to stay with that person, but they're still going to be out here looking for other people. Now, you have men when it comes to being with other women is because of the same reason. They want the attention. They want something new. So after they've had what they wanted, now they want something new. They want something different, and they want something younger, as they like to say. So, like I said, when it comes to lowering yourself, this is all because you want validation. And it is the reason why you lower your self-esteem, self-worth, and self-values. Why you're running around here trying to please other people that basically don't care nothing about you at all. And so when it comes to from darkness to light, I need people to understand that the greatest addiction stems from validation. Because what you're willing to do to be loved and all of those things I just said is insane. What people are willing to hold on to people that don't want to be kept, what people are willing to do to be a part of society standards, going to get plastic surgery, doing all of these things to their bodies just because they want somebody to basically date them. You will be surprised. Very, very surprised. So, what I want people to understand is when you are lowering yourself in order to be with people that will never reciprocate it, you're giving to people that's never going to give back, then that's a whole nother conversation. So, validation can be something that can cause a lot of people a lot of problems. Now, when it comes to narcissists, they may appear to love you initially. This feeling often is short lived and conditional. Narcissists have difficulty maintaining a meaningful connection, so their form of love is only often shallow and fleeting. Now, when it comes to a lot of people, that's true. There are a lot of people that y'all chasing behind that are straight up narcissists. And these are people that only care about their feelings and what they want and what they need. They care nothing about you. You are just another notch on their belt, which is something you do not want to be. Now, when it comes to what collapse a narcissist, people with NPD can experience what is known as narcissistic collapse when their self esteem is threatened or damaged. This can cause several reactions, including withdrawal, emotional outburst, and aggression. Well, that's the reason that people bust the windows out your car. That is the reason why when somebody find out they're cheating, that's why they react the way they do. Because when their self-esteem is threatened or damaged, in other words, when your emotions and in general are damaged or trauma, you are going to react in a negative way, whether it be cussing that person out, whether it be putting your hands on them. Regardless of what it is, there are a lot of people that are narcissists in that aspect. They think that by yelling at this person, it's going to change the narrative. It ain't going to change nothing. It don't mean that at all. Now, when it comes to validation, when it comes to love, it's making your partner feel heard and understood by showing that you see their perception and the perception that I said it right, and respect their feelings even if you don't agree. So, in other words, when you and whether it's a family member, whether it's a friend, y'all are having a conversation, what happens is it's supposed to be a two-way conversation. But the problem is a lot of people don't care about your feelings. Even the people close to you, they really don't care about your feelings at all. Now, how do you stop seeking validation? Examine your childhood experiences. Use self-care to self-validate. Practice saying no. Surround yourself with nourished support networks. And detach from invalidating people. Now, that's easier said than done. But once you do that, I'm trying to tell you, you're going to be happier when you do it. Now, why do you crave this so bad? Normal emotion development, low self-esteem, and in some cases, the presence of personal disorder. Now, a lot of people crave attention because dopamine, basically, dopamine. Now, dopamine, you can go up or down. It's just like a drug. Everything that you do that's an addiction is like a drug. It's a high. And when you get to a certain high, you want to remain at that high because of the way it makes you feel. It's just like when you have sex with somebody and you enjoy having sex with that person, and that person makes you feel things you never felt before. You're going to want to hold on to that by any means necessary. And you'll do anything to hold on to it. Even if that person is not a good person, you will still hold on to that person just because of the simple fact that sex is absolutely amazing. And even though you need to leave it alone, and even though that person is not good for you, you don't care. Now, the most common types of validation rules are required, specifically in that a field cannot be left blank, minimal or maximum, creating acceptable ranges of numeric data type, specifically that value must be a particular data type and pattern. When entering values should be followed by specific formats. Now, how do I put that in layman's terms? Now, when it comes to being required, it means that nothing should be left unsaid. That there should be some type of resolve. There should be some type of solution. When it comes to maximizing and minimizing, it means however many times, how many ways that you can go about having this conversation, you need to exhaust all possibilities. Type means what is it that you need validation of, and why do you need this type of validation? Pattern, what you're willing to do to get this validation. What mountains are you willing to climb? What are you willing to do to basically have that validation? So I need people to understand that there are multiple different types of validation. So when it comes down to validation, people need to understand that a lot of people will do anything and everything to be validated. But there's a difference between men and women when it comes to validation. Women's version of validation is a strong desire to be accepted or appreciated by others. It often manifests in women as a need to be praised and admiration. The problem with seeking validation externally is that it can be a never-ending cycle. People can be fickle, and what once made someone feel good no longer does so. So let me break down what that means. With women, every day they want to feel love, they want attention, they want you to make them feel good. It's just like when it comes to sex, everybody wants to feel good, but understand that sex is it doesn't last long. It doesn't. It's just a temporary thrill, but it leaves a permanent reaction. Now, when it comes to emotions, if a lot of men are not raised to be emotional, then that would mean that basically essentially they can't give you the emotions that you want because they don't have it to give. So, unless you're going to be able to teach this man how to be emotional, you're not going to get it. So, a man who uses validation doesn't really care what the woman likes, what her dreams are, or how she prefers to be treated. As a result, they tend to treat women in an informal manner, imposing things on them and streamroll them. Girls who tell them that they don't like something that they do. True, men are different. Men are all about the fact that when you go to them and you tell them how you feel, the first thing they're gonna say is, "I'm not ready for a relationship. I'm not ready for a commitment." That right there should tell you to leave him where he at. But that's not what you're going to do. You're gonna continue to deal with him anyway. You can continue to mess with him regardless of what happened, whether or not he's good for you or not. So at the end of the day, yes, when it comes to men, they don't look at validation in the same way. Their definition of validation is being successful and being the man and basically, basically their egos. So women are more about their emotions when it comes to validation, and men are more about their egos when it comes to validation. So how do you stop wanting attention from a man? Build your self-esteem. For many people, the need to always be the center of attention stems from low self-esteem. However, seeking attention behavior does nothing to help you build a healthy self-esteem. By using daily positive affirmations and surround yourself with genuine supporting people, this is a great place to start. So at the end of the day, a lot of y'all think that getting on these cameras and showing off your bodies and doing all this stuff shows validation. No, it shows insecurity. It shows low self-esteem. Low self-esteem. All these women going to get plastic surgery. It shows low self-esteem, low self-worth, and low self-value. That's what it shows. So when it comes to validation, it's just not something that everybody should actually do. So for men, it's all about to order to feel better about themselves or secure a place in hierarchy, such as workplace or social settings. So men don't look at validation from an emotional perspective. They look at it from a financial perspective. So as long as they're successful financially, oh, they're good. If they don't make money, they are not going to be happy at all. They're just not. So that's what people need to understand. So people that want validation, they always want somebody every day to tell them that they're beautiful and that they're worthy. So the difference between affirmation and validation is affirmation, it goes deeper and is much more specific. Affirmation is expressing empathy and the most importantly, highlighting the strengths and efforts the person has been put forth. Whereas validation means the acknowledgement of comments. So, in other words, affirmation is more so being empathetic when it comes to what somebody is dealing with. Whereas Whereas validation is all about proving something to people. Affirmation is not something where you have to prove something to. It just, people are naturally just empathetic towards you, sympathetic and understanding towards you. So an example of male validation is compliments, praise, affirmations are only in any other positive attention from men. That is what women want from men. They want men to be emotionally connected to them. They want them to basically give them attention 24/7. And they want that man's undivided attention, which he is not going to give. He's just not. So I get it, but there are levels when it comes to this. And it says level 1, stay awake and pay attention. Accurate reflection. Start what hasn't been said out loud. Validation using past history or biology. Normalizing and radical genuineness. Now, I need people to understand that when it comes to this particular topic, validation plays a very big part, because that's why a lot of y'all lower yourself, because of validation. You want people to like you, and you scared that if you are being your real and true self, that these people ain't gonna like you, they're not gonna want nothing to do with you, and they're not gonna want to be in a relationship with you. And that is the reason why a lot of you are doing the things you're doing, because you want these people to like you, you want these people to accept you, you want these people to be a part of your life that don't want to be a part of your life. And then after, when they don't, now you're upset because you can't understand why this person did what they did. Why did they leave you? Why did they just abandon you? Why did they just up and just use you for what they could use you for? That is what you're going to be upset about. And it's sad, but it's true. A lot of y'all are worried about the wrong things that don't even matter. Now, I'm going to read a verse of the day, as I always do in all my podcasts. The verse of the day is, Jesus replied, love the Lord your God with all of your heart and with all of your soul, with all of your mind, and be the first and the greatest commandment, and all second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. Now, let's see what that means.
You probably have heard of the term elevator pitch before. You know, those 30 to 60 seconds that you have traveling from floor A to floor B, trying to convince an investor or your boss to put money in your business idea, or to talk your girl or guy of your dream to go out on a date with you. But what would you say if somebody asked you for your elevator pitch for the Bible? 5 books in the Torah, 66 in the Protestant Bible, 73 in the Catholic Bible. In a nutshell, what would your story be? Hello, Bible lovers. My name is Matthias Walter with Museum of the Bible, and I have the privilege to talk you through my best friend's elevator pitch of what the Bible is all about. It's recorded in Matthew 22, and it's commonly referred to as the Great Commandment. The context of this verse is that a Pharisee is asking Jesus a trap question, and he's responding by quoting 2 verses from Deuteronomy and Leviticus. So when I read this to you right now, imagine not me, but Jesus giving you his elevator pitch. Jesus replied, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. I like the idea of the cross as an illustration for kind of explaining the 2 dimensions that Jesus talks about here. The vertical representing the relationship between God and us. Throughout the Bible, covenant after covenant after covenant, God shows his relentless desire to have a relationship with us. Our origin, our destination, the purpose of our existence is to love and worship God. Everything else derives from it, including the horizontal dimension that Jesus talks about. The commandment to love each other as ourselves, to look at each other as equal image bearers of God. You only have to spend 15 minutes on social media or at a family reunion to figure out how incredibly difficult this is. But this is so fundamentally important. The reason Jesus is summarizing the whole Bible in these 2 verses is the fact that the way that you and I love God and love each other might be the only Bible that some people will ever read.
And that's true. Very, very true. It says loving God and loving people. In Matthew 22, we see the religious leader of Jesus. Today, trying to trip him up with hard questions. One question was asked of him was this: Teacher, which of the great commandments is law? In an effort to trap Jesus, the Pharisees asked him something desired to expose ignorance and false teaching or any else that they could hold against Jesus in his ministry. But Jesus was ready. He said, You shall love the Lord your God with all of your heart and all of your soul, with all of your mind. This is a great and first commandment. Second is like, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Matthew 22:37-39. Such a significant, truthful answer did the opposite of what the religious leaders had hoped for. It didn't discredit Jesus, it validated that he was who he said he was. He didn't get cornered. He didn't get flustered. He simply, without wavering, clarified the foundation of everything. What Jesus was saying is loving God with all our hearts and loving each other with the way we love ourselves. These two things are important than anything else. They are the foundation of life as a believer. Not being right, not obtaining possessions or wealth, not having everything in life just as we want. Loving God and loving people. Here's the thing: only one way we can either love people well if we first devote ourselves to loving God and loving ourselves and allowing ourselves to be loved by Him. How? Like any relationship, there is a way to facilitate growth. Lord, I'm tongue tied today. Spend time in His Word. Have an honest conversation with Him. Reflect on His character every day. As you love God, grow and grow. As your love for God grows and grows, your heart for the people often will too. Showing love to God looks like doing what He commands, and that includes loving people around us the way God loves us. The good news is God loves you so much, and He loves you right now, and He is inviting you to know and experience His love today. So even though you may have a bunch of enemies and people that don't like you, you're still supposed to love them the way God loves you. Now, that does not mean you have to deal with them, doesn't mean you have to be friends with them. But the point is, you don't want to see any harm, and you're not going to be the one to do harm towards them, even though they may do harm towards you. It says Jesus made the principle of being your disciple. So simple. But walking in your footsteps can be incredibly hard. Please help me rely on your spirit to guide me through the words and actions. Make me an ambassador of your love. Amen. So, what I'm telling you is, it's not as easy as you think it is to walk the path that is of God, because it is not easy. It's not easy at all. But the question is, do you want to walk the path of positivity, or do you want to walk the path of negativity? That is going to be the question. So when it comes to lowering your standards, you should never lower your standards to anybody. You shouldn't have to lower yourself. You shouldn't have to ask for validation in order to be accepted, loved, and liked. If you got to do all of that, then no, you don't need to be the person at all. Now, codependency is a relationship addiction because people with codependency often form or maintain relationships that are one-sided and emotionally destructive. Now, there are a lot of people that are lowering themselves because of codependency. What you're willing to do to be in this relationship with this person is unhealthy. Now, it also says, what are signs of codependency in a codependency person? Number one, low self-esteem, trouble identifying your emotions, trouble making decisions, desire to care for others, desire to feel important to someone, the obsessive sense of responsibility for the way others act, the tendency to fall in love with people that you can rescue, and difficulty with change. Now, the one that got me was falling in love with the people that you can rescue. A lot of us are people pleasers, seat fillers, Captain Save-A-Ho, Build-A-Bears, and Build-A-Dolls. We just are. And we're people that's all about helping people, all about trying to make sure everybody else is good. And we do have a difficulty with change because we're not going to grow until we realize these people are bad for us. Now, what is it like to be with a person with codependency issues? Low self esteem. A codependency person can often struggle with self worth and seeking validation from their partner. People pleasing behavior. Seat fillers, Captain Save-A-Ho, Build-A-Bears, and Build-A-Dolls. Fear of abandonment, difficulty in setting boundaries, control issues, emotionally instability, and avoidance of conflict. Yep, that would be codependency. How do you fix a codependency relationship? Becoming less codependent in a relationship involves self-discovery, growth, and empowerment. Also evolving and elevating. Recognize patterns, setting boundaries, meet meet your emotional needs. Build a strong sense of self, developing outside interests, communicating openly to create a balanced dynamic and a mutual respect and independence. So a lot of y'all do not understand. A lot of y'all are basically lowering yourself because of codependency. Now, what is five symptoms of codependency? A lack of self-love, lack of boundaries, out of reality, lack of self-care, and lack of maturity and moderation. Now, there are a lot of people that are grown and adults and still can have codependency issues. You can have it all together and still have codependency issues. But what is a codependency? Red flag of codependency. A mood might reflect how others feel rather than your own emotions, guilt, and anxiety when doing something for yourself or things that you don't really want to do simply to make others happy. Idolizing your partner or loved ones, often pointing out and maintaining relationships that leave you unfulfilled. Yeah, that's something that I had an issue with, codependency. Yeah, I was an addict when it came to that. I ain't gonna lie. I've gotten a lot better from it. I really have. I've gotten very much better from it. Now, when it comes to codependency in women, a codependency person is one who gains all of these of their self-worth and self-esteem from others. They will have the hardest time being themselves. Their intentions are usually good at first. They'll just try to help someone get out of what they're going through a rough patch. One thing about a lot of people, they will absolutely put themselves last and lower themselves in order to be in these relationships that are not good at all. Relationships where these people don't want to be with them. They will continue to try to be with people that don't want them. They will continue to try to take care of other people, and basically they'll risk it all. They'll even go to jail for these individuals. They'll even take somebody's life for these individuals. People that you shouldn't even be doing these things for, you're doing them for, and the consequences and repercussions, your whole entire life is gone. Now, what causes codependency? Childhood trauma, mommy daddy child dynamic. It is often the root cause of codependency. They do not always result, but many people codependent relationships are response a response to unaddressed past trauma. One reason may be childhood trauma, usually family, centered around abuse, neglect, domestic violence, and even a divorce and fighting. So yeah, it mainly, and also high expectations. The fact that your parents put you on these high expectations, another reason that people have codependency, because their parents don't accept them for who they are. They end up trying to find people that actually um, are looking for it. Now, what is codependency mistaken for? Empathy, is the foundation of forming and maintaining healthy relationships, but is also mistaken for a different dysfunctional behavior, codependency. While empathy brings connection, understanding, and positive change, codependency leaves you empty, resentful, and drained. Absolutely true. A lot of people do mess up empathy for codependency. They do. Now, it's mental illness, codependency, and mental illness. Codependency is neither a personal disorder or a distant mental condition. It is a trait that hinders a person from having a healthy, mature, satisfying relationship. It is also distant from people dependent personality disorder. Now, dependent personality disorder is not a mental condition, like they said, and it's not a personality disorder. It's just it is a disorder, but it's more or less about being dependent on other people. What's the dark side of codependency? Codependent relationships are an unhealthy way to obtain self-esteem and feeling safe. Disoriented our identity and independence. One person is troubled and tends to absorb others' energy and resources by behaving selfishly. Now, you have people that are on two different sides of the coin. You have people that are craving attention from other people. And then you have other people that are sucking the life out of people's energy like vampires. So you have people that are codependent that can't be alone, but they have to be the center of attention. These are people that have no connection to anybody, but they're connected to you because of what you have more so than being around you because they genuinely like you. Now, how do you break being codependent? Understand the root of your codependency. Work to improve your self-esteem. Set and enforce boundaries. Discover your attachment style. Strengthen your communication skills. Spend time on your own. Focus on personal growth, and listen more about codependency. Now, why is all of this important? Because it still goes back to being alone. If you're someone that is codependent, you're going to have to learn how to be alone. And that right there is going to be hard for a lot of people to do. It's not that you can't be around people, but you shouldn't be around people because your whole personality will be based on the people that you're associating with. So the one thing about codependent people, they're like chameleons. They're like sirens. And they will adapt to whoever it is they're around. So their personality will be based around the people that they are around, to be honest. What does unhealthy codependency look like? Severe imbalance of power. So what this tends to mean is that one person gives much more time, energy, and focus on the other person who's constantly or unconsciously taking advantage of the situation in order to maximize their needs and desires. These are people that they cannot let go of people because they're scared of being alone. And they go both ways, whether it's the person that's using the person or the person that is the codependent, as far as the giver and the taker. Both of them can be codependent, but it's toxic. Neither one of them should be together, but yet and still, they're still dealing with each other anyway. Then you have the 4 C's: compulsion, control, craving, and consequence. Now, what are the triggers of codependency? Low self-esteem, family dynamic, insecure attraction styles. So that's when it comes to the insecurity attraction styles, it means that you're doing things that are not you in order to attract somebody. So let me give you an example. I have been the one that didn't like wearing makeup. And whenever my friends tried to hook me up with somebody, what they always did was they always made me look like what I really wasn't. And even though they would dress me up, I would still get the same result. These dudes still didn't want to talk to me. They still didn't want to be with me. I was entirely too nice. So when you realize that you're not being who you are and you're becoming someone else to be in a relationship, that's codependency. When you're letting people take advantage of you and bamboozle and lead you astray, that's codependency. So codependency, they're addicted to alcohol and drugs. So a lot of these people that are codependent have low self-esteem and look for something outside themselves to make them feel better. They find it hard to be themselves, so they try to feel better through alcohol, drugs, nicotine, sex, um, getting plastic surgery. It's so many different ways that people who have codependency end up, trying to make themselves feel better because they just don't like themselves. And that's through the low self. And how can you tell somebody's codependent? Lacks satisfaction of or purpose in life outside of relationships, the tendency to endure partners' harmful behavior, idolizing of a partner, enabling a partner's poor choices and behavior, controlling behavior, guilt when not attending to your partner's needs. And when I tell you I can relate to that, I can absolutely relate to that. Now, how do you stop it? You have to check in with yourself, work on your self-esteem and confidence, focus on your needs, engage in honest conversations, set boundaries, take responsibility for your feelings. So, toxic codependency is more of a detrimental relationship dynamic where one person is constantly prioritizing their own needs over the needs of others. So there's a lot of people that do that. There's a lot of people that pay people's rent. There's a lot of people that will go in debt because of these people. A lot of people that they only come around when they want some, and you will still be faithful to them even though they're not being faithful to you. So even though they're out here doing them, you're not doing you. You're just pretty much by yourself. Now, when it comes to what makes a codependent person happy, making extreme sacrifices for their partner. And you think by doing these things that this person is going to love you, they're going to appreciate it, and they're not. They're just going to use take advantage of it. So when it comes to how a codependent mother behaves, low self-esteem or lacking a sense of self, taking the role as a victim. Their caretaking role becomes compulsive or matron-like. A codependent parent may continuously be more than their share of work or caretaking, increasing the sense of responsibility for their children's action. So, in other words, that show, Mama's Boys, that show, that one, that's pretty much what that is. You have a lot of parents that have codependency when it comes to their children. Now, how do you know that you're in love? In love, partners have the authority to make their own decisions. However, codependency, control, fear, and shame influences their decisions. So these people don't have boundaries. So you might want to think about that. Now, when it comes to codependency, it's not a mental illness. It's not anything to do with mental health. It's more psychological. So there's a difference between mental health and psychological health. And that's the thing you have to decide is what you're dealing with mental, emotionally, spiritually, financial, or internally or externally, far as your health and wellness. Is it something that's mental or psychological? There are two very different entities, and that's something you got to make the decision on. Now, is it easy to break bonds with people? No. But eventually you're gonna have to break the chain because this person not giving you what you want. You might as well let them go. Now, when it comes to taking a codependency test, ask questions about codependent individual behavior, feelings, and communication patterns with their partners. Now, when it comes down to is codependency a part of narcissism? Some argue that codependency can be considered a form of narcissism because it has similar drives, which is true. What starts codependency? unhealthy dynamics between a parent and a child. So, in other words, you're looking for love in your parents that they're not giving you, so now you look for it in someone else. The root cause of codependency, it comes when someone raised by a parent who are either overprotective or underprotective. Overprotective parents may shield and protect their children from gaining confidence they need to be independent in the world. Whereas underprotected are kids that are not being protective and they are independent and self sufficient, but they are told their emotions are pretty much weaknesses, pretty much. Now, the personality of it would be a problem of distribution of love, respect, caring, and with close and romantic relationships. So when it comes to that, making sure this person is taken care of and that they're good. Now, what are codependent people afraid of? They're afraid of the relationship ending. They're afraid of rejection. They're afraid of that their feelings are not being reciprocated. And yes, codependency can turn into a session. Absolutely. If you leave a codependent person in a relationship, if you leave them alone, they become very anxious. They have anxiety and uneasy at the thought of being alone because it forces them to confront their deepest fears and insecurities, which they have repressed due to their co-parent partner constant presence. So some people will not tell people what they're going through. So when they break up, it's like, if I can't have you, no one can. Now, there's a difference between codependency and trauma bonding. Now, when it comes to codependency in friendships, is an imbalance of giving and take, emotional burnout, and enmeshment where a personal boundaries are lost and the identity becomes deep and intertwined with the friendship. So when you're dealing with the difference between with travel bonding would be let's see, codependent stays fixed on others, and travel bonding is because the love for each other. Trauma bonding is more so you bond over stuff you both have been through, whereas codependency is about trying to fix people more so than anything. So when it comes to this, there's a lot of different information, but what are the behaviors when it comes to codependency? Lying, hiding, and irritability. In other words, you're irritated. So there's a lot of information about codependency, and I will have to go more in detail about this. But when it comes to the 4 types of codependency, there's the enabler, the controller, the people pleaser, and the martyr. So we'll go more in detail into both of these this season because, like I said, there are many different reasons why people lower themselves for other people. But these 2 are the primary reasons why they do it. It's the primary reasons, but there are other things that are associated with it. So you have to go through all of these separately. Now, the dark side of it is the distortion our identity and independence. So in other words, for codependency and validation, you are quick to lower yourself to be with people that don't want you. You're quick to get involved in things that don't have anything to do with you at all, but you'll just get involved anyway. So it's the reason I wanted to have this conversation is because of that. So I just want people to understand that when it comes to codependency, when it comes to validation, these are the 2 reasons how you end up on drugs and alcohol, how you end up in jail because you wanted validation so bad you committed a crime and now you're going to jail. You wanted validation so bad that now you're to the point where you now are on drugs. You wanted to prove yourself so bad to the point you are now a single mother. That's pretty much what it is. So, with that being said, I need people to understand these two things impact every addiction that you got, every single one. And it does. So, like I said, I just want people to understand that being in these situations are not easy. It is hard and it's a lot that come with it. But I also want people to understand that what goes around comes around. It absolutely does. So I just want people to be very mindful of the fact that codependency and validation are the reason for all of your addictions because of what you're willing to do for it. What you're willing to do to be validated is what makes it an addiction. What you're willing to go through and put up with is what causes it. So I am going to get ready to get some rest, but I really want to thank y'all for joining me for this episode. I appreciate y'all because I've been up since 5 o'clock this morning. I am going to bed. I've been going to bed a lot earlier than I normally do. But like I said, how you know you have changed is because you're not catering to this person anymore. You accept the fact this person don't want to be with you, and now you have moved on from the situation. So codependency can definitely be something that a lot of us have had to endure and that we've had to deal with. And that's just it on that. And it's sad that we have had to deal with it, but you know, this is what we have to endure. So at the end of the day, like I said, just like when it came to the sex code, I had just went and talked to somebody because I didn't want them to go through what I went through. And I wanted to make sure that they know that, okay, trust me, you're not the only ones that went through it. Other people went through it too. So that being said, I just wanted to come on there and just, give my respect and just do right by people. I don't and pass it to the baton. But like I said, people got to be careful because people nowadays are pretty insane. So with that being said, I am getting ready to get up out of here, but I want to thank y'all for joining me for this episode. Without y'all, there is no me. I'll be nothing without y'all. But the last thing it says, don't come any closer. God said, take off your sandals, for the place where you're standing is holy ground. Exodus 3:5. And then it also says, any of you lack wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and with and will be given to you. So these are just things you need to sit down and really think about. So it's just like this thing with Andrew Tate, for example. I don't know, I haven't seen Andrew Tate in a minute, but apparently that when it comes to Andrew Tate, you never know. So it's amazing. But let's hear what they have to say right quick.
When things go sideways, will you be prepared?
Are you still interested in a solar-powered jump?
Walmart banned this energy-saving device from their stores,
now they got
but they
commercials.
can't stop you from getting one here.
Hi,
Wow.
guys. You know what else you could do if you were broke? You could find a business to start that takes very little money to start. Now, I ran a webcam studio, and I'm talking about it more and more these days because of this stupid police case against me and these stupid false accusations. So a webcam studio was an example of a business that at the time when I was young and broke, I didn't need very much money to start. I had the expertise into how all the websites worked. And how to build social media profiles. The girls were obviously pretty. You needed a laptop and a webcam and a keyboard. And that's all you really needed to get started. And you could make thousands of dollars per week that way. And then you could scale your business from there. Now, there are many different businesses that will take your time up, but don't cost money to start. Even in your local area. I mean, you have a lawnmower, you got no money. Maybe you need $500, $600, $700 before you can buy the equipment you need to get it to the next step. Go door to door with your lawnmower before you can hire some Mexican to do it for you and cut everyone's grass before you have the time to register a company, hire an employee, and get him cutting grass for you and then scale from there. So find a business that doesn't take much to start up. Certainly don't go around asking people for money like people ask me all the time. Hey, Tate, I'm broke, but I've got this business idea. I need 50 grand. If you're good at business and you have a good business mind, you will find a business that you can do without begging me for money, because I'm never going to see that 50 grand again. And I've never broken any laws. I don't care at all. In fact, I am so happy that I ran that webcam studio. I almost am tempted, just as a fuck you to Romania, to open a new one. There's 3,000 of them here anyway. I might just open one and hire a bunch of models and say, come and arrest me because it's not a crime. But I think that goes against my newfound morality, my values, so I won't do that. But I could, and the prosecutors from DCOT could literally suck my dick, because there's nothing wrong with that business, and it's a fully legal tax-payable business, and there are studios all over this country. So people often ask me if I'm ashamed of running that webcam studio, and I'm like, no, I'm exceptionally proud of myself. I learned so much about, I think, the male condition, how lonely men are, how sad men are. And this is something that me and Andrew talk about a lot, men's mental health. I learned a lot about male-female dynamics. I learned a lot about just general how to manage a business. It was a very interesting business to run. It was an incredibly interesting business to run. And keep in mind, I don't come from a world where I have rich parents or successful parents. I don't have a university education. I'm not from I didn't go to a good school. I come from probably the worst town in England. It's still the worst town to live in England. And I made a successful business out of running a webcam studio. And now I preach against it. I'm far more qualified to preach against the consumption of adult content and the creation of adult content because I'm a former industry insider. I'm very much like a former drug dealer who knows how bad drugs are because he saw the effects it had on his customers. So I like all the knowledge I gained from running that business. And if I could turn back time and not do it, I wouldn't. I'd turn back time and do everything exactly the same as I did. Shopping in London is all about the sales experience. And the sales experience of the things you buy in London is better than almost anywhere in the world. New York, comparable. Some places in Dubai, comparable. However, even when I was in the Rolls-Royce showroom, signing the papers for the car, looking the car up and down, etc., there was champagne in my hand, all the champagne I could drink. You're sitting there, getting pissed. It's part of the English culture. I think that's why English do it best. It's exactly the same on Savile Row when I go to get my suits made. When I go and I try this jacket on for size, it's a bit too big in the shoulders, and they're pinning it down, etc. There's a gin and tonic in one hand, a champagne in the other hand. You're talking, you're making stupid jokes, you're feeling all these expensive materials, you're making stupid decisions, you're drunk as fuck, you have a good night out, you go home and you're hungover the next morning, you look at your tailoring bill and you're like, I've spent 160,000 pounds, haven't I? However, it's totally worth it. The shopping experience for the most expensive things in the world is not just about picking up the item. Procuring the item is secondary. And it should be the same. London's getting dangerous nowadays. But even if you go into a Patek Philippe shop and you've ordered this watch, obviously, you would have had to order it in advance and it's ready and you go in there to pick it up. It's, oh, hello, Mr. Tate, how are you? Please take a seat. Would you like a glass of champagne? Even when Andrew goes into Armani, for example, because he's such a well-known customer, it's, oh, hi, guys, how are you? You sit down, here's some booze, not for Andrew because he doesn't drink, and let me bring all the things in your size that I think you'll like. That's a shopping experience like no other. It's very different from, I remember going through the racks at Matalan. If you're English, you'll know the reference, and trying to find a pair of jeans that fit me after all these pairs of jeans and nothing's tailored and nothing fits and it's horrible. And then I find a pair of jeans and it's 4 pounds more than I have in my pocket because I've only got 30 pounds and you can't negotiate. Shopping sucks unless you're a millionaire. The term millionaire was...
So that's the thing. So a lot of people do talk about Andrew Tate and they talk about Tristan Tate. Now, if they would have did this content in the beginning, they would not be where they at right now. But they went on the Fresh and Fit show and they messed around and now they're in the mess they in. And I don't care what nobody say. If Andrew Tate would have never got involved with Fresh and Fit and got involved with them in any capacity, they would not be where they at right now. They wouldn't be. But the reality of it is Andrew Tate is not as well known as he used to be. There was a time where people knew who Andrew Tate was and they wanted to get to know Andrew Tate, but now not so much. Mind you, they used to. They used to, deal with them, but now they don't as much. So, yeah. So like I said, when it comes to Andrew Tate and Tristan Tate, same thing. These females are lowering themselves. All these females would be lowering themselves in order to be with these men in the industry. It's absolutely amazing. It's amazing what women will do to get a man and what men will do to get a woman. It's absolutely amazing. So it's gonna be crazy. I'm looking at my great niece, a little bad. So that girl is so bad. She is so cute. She's adorable. But anyway, like I said, I'm looking at these pictures and then I'm off to bed. But like I said, when it comes to these situations, it's always something. So, like I said, it's just you'll be amazed what go on. So, but welcome to the world of darkness. And like I said, there are a lot of people are going through darkness right now and trying to find the light. But instead of letting God lead their life, they're letting everybody else lead their life. They're lowering themselves for people that God told them to never lower yourself. God said to never lower yourself. You don't lower yourself to build other people up. You help people and still not lose yourself. That's what matters. As long as you're not losing yourself, that's all that matters. But a lot of people don't seem to understand that. So, with that being said, I am going to get ready to lay down and get some rest and relax. So, with that being said, I will talk to y'all a little bit later. And thank you guys for joining me for this episode. I am your host. Y'all know who I am. I'm about to put this on my podcast. And then I have to do my African Melanin Queens. I'm going to do that tomorrow morning. And I'm going to do the other one, the Perfectly Imperfection, tomorrow as well, because I'm too tired to do it tonight. So I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do all 4 of them tomorrow. But I'm going to have all my podcasts on time. It's just y'all may not be able to see it, but there's a knot right here on my thyroid, so I'm still working on that. So right now, I don't know if it's something stuck or what it is, but it's literally right there on my thyroid. So I'll be glad when they find out what exactly is going on so they can fix it. So with that being said, I appreciate you guys for joining me for this episode. And I'm your host. Y'all know who I am. Thank you guys for joining me for this episode. And I am off to bed. That being said, good night, y'all. Bye. And don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and notification button to receive notification of my videos. With that being said, I would love to hear from y'all. If y'all want to email me about being a guest, by all means, you can. So with that being said, I'm out of here. Bye, y'all.